as close as your imagination exists a magical place where wondrous creatures with incredible powers help make dreams come true. It's the world of Pokémon.
You've been lied to, Pokémon fans. A Pokémon world would not be wonderful. It would be actually pretty normal. Not too bad, TBH. Let's face it, who wouldn't want Pokémon to be real? I mean, come on, who doesn't want to ride a Charizard? The Pokémon games and anime have shown the Pokémon world to be this wonderful, magical place of peace and harmony, a place where nature and technology can happily coexist. Sure, you get the occasional extremist group, but the Pokémon world has always been depicted as a world where dreams come true. What if Pokémon suddenly appeared on Earth one day? Of all the Pokémon theories I've seen around the internet, there's never been one that seems actually realistic, so today we're going to be taking a look at the social, economic, and infrastructural impacts of Pokémon in the real world. Okay, so here's this scenario. You wake up one morning and boom, Pokémon exists now. Let's start from here. For a while, life would likely go on as normal. Kids would still be going to school and Pokémon trainers would not exist quite yet, which I'll get into a bit later. It would likely cause a state of fear and panic among the populace as the world governments attempt to figure out how to deal with magical creatures running around the planet. Many of the ideas floating around would be to tame them like pets, capture and study them, leave them be, or to exterminate them entirely. Since they display seemingly impossible feats such as breathing fire or just straight up pure energy, the United Nations would likely settle on befriendment, considering extermination would be very unethical and would prove very difficult. However, we'll get back into government a little bit later. Another thing many people wonder is if real-life animals would coexist alongside Pokémon. To find the answer, we looked up Pocket Monsters the novelization, which I will be referencing a lot throughout this video. In the book, it states that Pokémon and real-world animals did coexist at one point, but author Takeshi Shudo stated that real-world animals had gone extinct long before Ash began his journey, so we can assume that it would take about 5 to 10 years, at least, for most real-life animals to go extinct, as Pokémon would have superior skill sets, allowing them to hunt and defend themselves from any real-world animals. This time frame is not too far off, since there have been many species who have gone extinct in a shorter amount of time, for example, the Tasmanian tiger. Of course, we humans would try to preserve as many animals as we can, such as in zoos or reservations, but anything in the wild is at the mercy of Arceus. Since Pokémon are unlike any other living things on Earth, they would have to get their own zoological classification, also explained in the prologue of the novelization. Getting back into government, after the UN's decision to let the creatures live and coexist with humans, social unrest would soon ensue worldwide as there would be frightened individuals and extremist groups who are uninformed and concerned as to what these creatures are actually capable of. Many would be concerned about their impact on the planet as a whole, and there would likely be many protests to hunt Pokémon to extinction as to preserve life on Earth. Some extremist groups would take matters into their own hands and begin killing Pokémon en masse, either for sport or because they believe they're doing the world a service, similar to the mentality of the Nazis during the Holocaust. Hunting Pokémon would become illegal in most nations to prevent poaching like this. This is even seen in the anime where Ash and Co are wrongly accused of poaching on numerous occasions. This poaching would cause a worldwide criminal underground for selling live Pokémon or their body parts, and likely causing illegal fights as battles had not yet been legalized. Getting into the economic side of things, as time goes on, more and more people would be taming and befriending Pokémon, warranting a need for ways to carry them around because, let's face it, it'd be a bit of an inconvenience to be walking down the street with a Kangaskhan by your side. This would lead to many companies around the world attempting to find a solution to this ever-growing issue. It would cause a global economic standstill as the demand for a containment device would be so high that any company working on this technology would need tons of funding. Because a project with such high demand would be so profitable and beneficial to the country who manufactures it, nations with strong science programs such as the United States, China, Germany, the United Kingdom, and France would have stockholders investing in what is probably the most profitable product since smartphones, hence why Apple is so successful. I believe that Japan would be the first to develop Pokeball technology, not because Pokemon is a Japanese property, but because Japan has the strongest nuclear energy program in the world. If you saw my Pokeball video from Proto Mario's channel a while back, then you know that nuclear power is necessary in converting matter into energy, so Japan would likely be first. When Pokeballs are finally released for public consumption, Japan would be one of the most powerful countries in the world. About 100 years after Pokemon appeared on Earth, the world's infrastructure would have completely changed. Many people would lose their jobs that are easily filled by Pokemon. For example, Pokemon like Machoke and Conkeldurr would replace many construction jobs, and many electric-type Pokemon would be harnessed for the production of electricity. This would leave many unemployed, which would destroy some economies. This is where we get into education. According to Pocket Monsters the novelization, children attend school until they are 10 years old, when they are then considered adults. From there, they can either continue school, focus on a career, but as most would do, become a Pokemon trainer. The book also states that most Pokemon trainers fail and either go back to school or get jobs. This could be applied to the real world, but with a few changes. Personally, I think that the age of adulthood in most countries, that being 18 years of age, would be when kids stop going to school, just like how it is in real life. However, in this hypothetical scenario, I believe that you would be able to legally own a Pokemon at 16, similar to having a driver's license in most countries. After completing school, you would be given similar options to the novelization, being that you could either go to school, get a job, or become a trainer. However, I believe that Pokemon trainers would not be as common as the anime and games make them out to be. Being a Pokemon trainer requires buying things like Pokeballs and potions, which require money, which you cannot obtain without a job of some kind. Being a trainer would be financially impossible unless you're getting some kind of income from an outside source. Trainers can't get things for free simply for being trainers because that would collapse the economy due to people trying to get in on those benefits. Most people would go the economically stable route and just get a job. Only the wealthy would really be able to train Pokemon professionally. Another possibility is that being a Pokemon trainer is like being a professional athlete in real life, where they get paid to play the sport. However, you'd need to be good enough for the league to essentially sign you. World governments would not be involved in these leagues and would get their funding from outside sources, much like actual sports leagues. The Olympics would also likely change to incorporate Pokemon battles and perhaps even contests as main events, where they take the best from around the world to compete. All this talk about Pokemon battles begs the question if Pokemon battles are immoral. Many people would be quick to assume that Pokemon battles are akin to dogfighting, and in this hypothetical society, there would be much debate over this issue. It's no secret that in the games and anime, Pokemon can die, and that would be no different if the creatures were real. However, the odds of Pokemon actually killing each other in battle are somewhat low, as the Pokemon, specifically domesticated ones, likely see it as playing around, much like dogs and cats. Pokemon are different from real-life animals, as Pokemon have higher pain tolerance due to their magical properties, so given this information, I think that most countries would legalize Pokemon battles while paralleling Pokemon battles to boxing, where both sides fight until the opponent is unconscious. Pokemon are also more intelligent than actual animals, so that would also play a role in this decision, as most Pokemon would be obedient and smart enough to know when to stop. It may also be a matter of willing to battle. As we see in the Indigo League, Ash's Charizard loses because it refused to battle, so perhaps the Pokemon must be willing to battle and not be forced into doing so in order for a battle to be considered legal. So far, we've only really talked about how society would change in developed and developing nations, but what about third world countries? Basically in mid-Africa and southern Asia. One of two things would occur. Either A, any socially primitive tribes would treat Pokemon as gods or spirits, then worship them, or B, complete and utter anarchy. With the lack of education or connection to the outside world, many third world countries would basically be on their own without much help from the United Nations. Since I mentioned religion, it's time we talked about how the existence of Pokemon would change them. For starters, most people would not be aware of the existence of certain legendary Pokemon such as Arceus, Dialga, Palkia, Groudon, Kyogre, etc., so many religions would not accommodate for them. As I mentioned earlier, socially primitive societies may adopt Pokemon as gods, so this would really only affect primitive religions. Religions like Christianity, Islam, and Judaism would probably not change much considering they are already pretty much set in stone. Literally. New religious movements may start in developed countries where they believe there's a Pokemon god or gods, but it's honestly hard to say for sure what would happen, so I think it's time we probably move on. It's also worth noting how the media would change. Would there be TV shows showcasing rare Pokemon, kind of like Steve Irwin? Perhaps battle strategy shows, kind of like how sports networks talk about player stats? Again, it's hard to say for sure. Our world would no doubt be greatly affected by the existence of Pokemon. Everything I've said in this video is simply my opinion based on economics and social movements, but this is just one man's opinion. If you have anything that you think would happen, please be sure to leave your thoughts down below. See you next time.